Anyway, without wanting to get too much into the kind of socio-economic side of things,
Mhm.
how do you suggest parents deal with the whole topic of fast food?
So there's a couple, well, there's probably many reasons that we go to fast food,
Mhm.
and it could be time, and it could be convenience, and it could be lack of cooking skills, and it could be price. It could be a bunch of
Yeah.
different things. And I think to first identify why you're going to that is would be the first. Like, is it because I don't get an argument from my kids and it just makes the day a little bit easier, it's less stress? Or is it because it's on the way home from wherever we are,
Yeah.
5 days a week? Is it because I don't have anything at home to cook, and then this is just our only option? I don't like to cook, or we view, cooking at home or eating healthfully as expensive. And I think it can be, but I don't think it has to be, right?
Yep,
Like
I hear you.
brown rice, beans, potatoes, like, those are some of the least expensive things that you can buy in the market. And just, whole foods, like unprocessed foods, anything. I mean, it's been shown, over and over again, cooking at home, regardless of what you make, tends to be healthier than what you eat out of the house, right? Because less preservatives, less chemicals, less processing, less packaging, less refined oils, sugars, like you name it. So I think that it's not correct that eating healthfully has to be a big expense. And I do a breakdown of, if you go to like a fast food place here and you get, you have 2 adults and 2 kids and you get whatever the meals are, right? They're like $5 to $9 per person, right? So on the low end, that's $20 for a family of four to go through a drive-through. You could make quite a meal at home for $20. I mean, it really is very doable.
I know my one question about that is I fear that there is a large segment of the population that don't have that kind of kitchen literacy to be able to
Mhm.
cook simple things and make them tasty.
Yeah. So I think that I'm all about small steps.
Yeah.
I'm all about small steps. And so I think that if once a week, once every other week, you looked online, there's a zillion recipes for something like, rice and beans, or, a chicken baked dish, or, healthy tacos or something, very, very simple. And you just tried that once every other week. You just tried a new recipe. And you can even look, I would suggest in your search terms, using the words simple, easy,
Yeah.
quick, like quick tacos, simple soups, whatever that is that you're trying to make. Um, and then at the end of a year, if you do that every other week, I mean, you have 26 potentially recipes in your arsenal now that you can go through and, kind of pick and choose. And even if half of them don't work, you have 12, right? Um, and so that's a place to start. And then you'll figure out what your family likes and what your family doesn't like. And I would say, don't stretch if you're used to fast food. Don't make something so bizarre that your family is going to look at it
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's from outer space, right? Try to stay in alignment with what, if you, go to get tacos, if you go to get burgers, if you go to get pizza, try to make those kinds of things at home.
Yeah.
And just the fact of making it home versus eating out is going to level up the nutrition
Of
value,
course.
and decrease those ingredients that we try to avoid. And then hopefully gets the kids in the kitchen, and that's key. I don't know if you've experienced that as well, but like when my son got in the kitchen with me and was making stuff, he was way more invested in eating it because he had a hand in making it, right? So it's easy for him to tell me that he doesn't like what I made. It's not as easy for him to say like what he made wasn't that good.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
you know, and so that's what I always recommend too, is getting the kids in the kitchen with you, whether you're an expert cook or whether you're on this adventure as well, right? Do it together.
Well, my wife is, she's quite often giving me a hard time these days because I have demonized fast food, especially the golden arches, to such a degree that she says that I've kind of built up this kind of mystical image of this forbidden thing, and she's a bit worried that he's going to go in the other direction. He has asked me some rather interesting questions. He said the other week, Daddy, if you were going to save the world, would you rather eat a McDonald's or eat a doggy poo? And I was like, Anyway. On another note, one thing that I found quite helpful when I was trying to raise a healthy appetite was something, again, another thing that my wife and I disagreed upon, which was from a very early age, I always explained to him where beef came from, where lamb came from, where rabbit came from, for example, so much so that he'd said, oh, I want more bunny, I want to eat more bunny. And now rabbit isn't something that is commonly eaten in Toronto, Canada, and one can find it in different neighborhoods, like such as the Portuguese neighborhood, and lots of other neighborhoods, but it's more of a kind of, it's not really a common thing on menus, but I've always really loved cooking rabbit. And so it was something we had quite often, about once every 2 months. And my wife was quite worried when he kept on saying, oh, I want more bunny, I want more bunny, can I have more bunny? And she was worried about that. But I've realized that over time, he's always had this very honest idea of where food comes from. And I think that's important, because I think even in adults, we're now so far removed from our food. You know, when a lot of adults buy chicken, they buy boneless, skinless chicken breasts, which are just like these pink lumps which bear little relation, you know, wrapped in styrofoam and
yes,
bear no relation to a chicken itself. And there are lots of adults who wouldn't know what to do with a whole chicken. I'm serious.
I think. Yeah. Yeah. I think it is important to know where your food comes from for all of us. And I think if kids get that idea early on, then it just helps empower them to make decisions as to what they want to eat as they grow older. I mean, I ate what my parents ate. Most kids eat what their parents eat. But I think educating them and empowering them with information as to why you are eating this or where this came from, it's only helpful in them making a decision as they grow into teenagers and adults, you know, as to why they want to eat what they want to eat. And you're right, we're so disconnected by design, I feel, from where our food comes from, because, you know, I think if most of us knew how this food was processed, you know, whether it's meats or just packaged food or whatever, I think a lot of us wouldn't eat it, but we get it and it's golden brown and it's crispy, or it's whatever it is, right? It's shaped into something that looks like we want to eat it. But if they saw kind of behind the curtain, I don't know that all of that food would be so appetizing. And so I think a connection to our food, regardless of what the food is really important.
We mentioned allergies earlier. In your experience doing what you do, what are your thoughts on allergies in children? And why have we seen such a greater prevalence of allergies in generations recently?
I think it's multi-pronged, but you're right. So there's a couple things that are on the rise. One is that the amount of allergies, or the amount of kids with allergies, has increased, but the number of foods they're allergic to has increased.
Yes.
So when we were kids, like, it was, if there was one kid in my class in the school that had an allergy, like we all knew who that was. It was something to be noted, right? And it was maybe peanuts, shellfish, like that, you know, maybe an oddball thing here and there, but that was really kind of it. And now, you know, it's gluten and it's dairy and it's fruit and it's peanuts and it's tree nuts and it's coconut and it's mustard and it's, I mean, it's so grand. And I think there's probably a couple things. One is that we've not been kind to our guts, whether children or adults, over the past few decades, right? And that has to do with the overprocessing, the refining, the sugar, the pesticides, and all of the things that are sprayed on our produce are really damaging our gut. And that can make us more sensitive to things that we otherwise wouldn't be sensitive to. So, and that's why, you know, even adults as they age, sometimes will be like, you know, I used to be able to eat eggs and now I can't eat eggs. Like I just can't, you know, and I used to be able to be, you know, eat fish. I used to be able to eat apples and now I just can't. And so a lot of it has come from like the damage that we've done to our guts. But I think exposure is part of it too. We haven't been exposing because it's like as there were some allergies, people got afraid and didn't expose, and then more afraid, and then allergies, and then more, right? And it's
Yes,
almost
yeah.
like a vicious cycle of not introducing them to things for fear of an allergy. And then now we have all these, you know, sensitivities. But I think that, you know, our food sources and what we're eating in general has narrowed, right? Like we, you know, tend to, if you know, school lunch or what's served at, you know, camps and community centers, I mean, it's very narrow,
Yes.
right? So that's what our bodies are used to. And just like anything, if you're, even if you're eating fast food and then all of a sudden you decide to eat, you know, salads, like any change like that is going to be an impact to how you feel, because your body's like, what, we've never seen this before. We don't know what to do, no matter how healthy the food is, or no matter what, you know, how unhealthy the food is. When it's so different from what you've been taking in, your body needs a minute to kind of figure out like, okay, how do we process this? How do we digest this? And that can come across as like digestive upset, inflammation, you know, and then kind of a what we would think of as like an allergic reaction, just some sort of like inflammatory response.
You mentioned there the sort of gradual degradation of the human biome. What would one do to replenish that, whether it be in a child or in an adult?
Yeah. So always shifting towards whole and unprocessed foods is going to be ideal, because especially with plants, that's where like our fiber comes from. And those kinds of things like fiber rich foods, which happen to be our fruits and vegetables, you know, our whole grains and things like that, they're naturally going to give our balance to our gut, to our microbiome, because fiber is what our body, you know, what our gut feeds on, and to multiply and to grow the good guys. When we're constantly having, you know, like the refined and the
Yes.
processed foods, it's not helping our, you know, gut balance. And there's always going to be some good and some bad bacteria in our gut, but we need the balance to tip in favor of the
Yeah.
good. So going for whole unprocessed food, and then also decreasing what I call toxins, or those ingredients that are like doing damage to our gut, right? We have an opportunity for most of us 3 times a day to either help or harm our gut. And so when we're eating fast food, when we're eating produce that was sprayed with pesticides, when we're eating things out of plastic, when we're eating artificial dyes, artificial colors, you know, high fructose corn syrup, artificial sweeteners. I mean, all the stuff that unfortunately, like, you know, riddled
Yeah.
our diet is riddled with, it's really damaging our gut every single day. So if, you know, so it's a mix of like increasing the good stuff and decreasing the stuff that has a negative impact on our gut. And you can do it. I mean, you can also have probiotic rich foods or fermented foods too, and that's going to help. So like things like sauerkraut, kimchi, you know, fermented foods are, you know, yogurts and things like that
Does
are going to
beer
help.
work for that?
I've heard pretty
Joke.
good, especially for kids.
Yes.
Really
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah.
Just add, you know, tipping that balance in favor of like the beneficial bacteria producing, supporting foods, and away from the refined. I mean, my thing is like, if it doesn't have an ingredient label, it's good. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what you
Yeah.
want. If it's an ingredient, you want to eat it. If it's full of ingredients, you know,
Bit less
maybe
so. Yeah.
a bit less so. And not to say that you can't have anything packaged, but that's kind of the direction that you want to go.
I hear you. I hear you. So, if one of our readers was wishing to hear a little bit more about candy to carrots, where would they be going?
So you can find that on my website, and my website is Wellness Riot,
Okay.
RIOT.com. And there's a link to the Candy to Carrots course, and you can read about it prior to, you know, investing or purchasing. But like I said, it's about an hour of content, and there's a lot of resources and documentation that comes
Oh, great.
along with it. There's a recipe ebook, there's a guide, there's a list of ingredients to avoid, there's a food and reaction tracker. So there's a lot of resources that come along with it. And you can read all about it, and even testimonials, about like what parents have experienced who have taken the mini course.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining us at Good Food Revolution today. Thank you for answering all of my kind of questions going out on tangents there. And hopefully we'll have a chance. Hopefully we'll have a chance to catch up with you at one point again in the future. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. I love it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.